Welcome to our video on mathematics and gaming, the math behind video games. In this video, we will explore the fascinating world of video games and how mathematics plays a crucial role in their development. From the simplest games to the most complex ones, mathematics is the foundation on which they are built. Show a montage of different video games, from classic arcade games to modern-day console games. Video games have come a long way since their inception in the 1970s. Today, they are a multi-billion-dollar industry with millions of people playing them every day. But have you ever wondered how these games are created? What goes into making a game that is not only fun to play, but also challenging and engaging? Show a developer working on a video game with equations and formulas on the screen. The answer lies in mathematics. Video game developers use mathematics to create the game mechanics, design the levels, and even simulate the physics of a game world. In this video, we will explore some of the ways in which mathematics is used in video game development. Show examples of game mechanics, level design, and physics simulation in different video games. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to discover the fascinating world of mathematics and gaming, the math behind video games. Game mechanics are the rules and systems that govern how a game is played. They are the building blocks of a video game and are essential to its success. Mathematics plays a crucial role in designing game mechanics. Show examples of game mechanics in different video games, such as puzzles, platformers, and RPGs. Let's take the example of a puzzle game. In a puzzle game, the player is presented with a problem that they need to solve. The game mechanics dictate how the player interacts with the problem and how the game responds to their actions. Show an example of a puzzle game, with the player moving blocks around to solve a puzzle. To design the game mechanics for a puzzle game, the developer needs to use mathematics to create a set of rules that govern how the blocks can be moved. They need to consider factors such as the size of the blocks, the distance they can be moved, and the constraints that limit their movement. Show an example of a developer working on a puzzle game with equations and formulas on the screen. The same applies to other types of games, such as platformers and RPGs. In a platformer, the game mechanics dictate how the player moves and interacts with the environment. In an RPG, the game mechanics dictate how the player progresses through the game and how they interact with other characters. Show examples of platformers and RPGs with the player jumping and fighting enemies. In both cases, mathematics is used to create a set of rules that govern how the player interacts with the game world. These rules need to be balanced to ensure that the game is challenging but not impossible to complete. Show an example of a developer adjusting the game mechanics to balance the difficulty. So, game mechanics are an essential part of video game development, and mathematics is crucial in designing them. In the next segment, we will explore how mathematics is used in level design. Level design is the process of creating the levels or stages in a video game. It involves designing the layout, obstacles, enemies, and other elements that make up the game world. Mathematics plays a crucial role in level design. Show examples of different levels in video games, such as side-scrolling levels, open-world levels, and puzzle levels. Let's take the example of a side-scrolling level. In a side-scrolling level, the player moves from left to right, and the game world scrolls to keep up with them. The level designer needs to use mathematics to create a level that is challenging but not impossible to complete. Show an example of a side-scrolling level, with the player jumping over obstacles and enemies. To design the level, the designer needs to consider factors such as the height and distance of jumps, the speed of moving platforms, and the placement of enemies. They need to use mathematics to calculate the trajectory of the player's jumps and the timing of their movements. Show an example of a designer working on a level, with equations and formulas on the screen. The same applies to other types of levels, such as open-world levels and puzzle levels. In an open-world level, the designer needs to use mathematics to create a vast and immersive game world that the player can explore. In a puzzle level, the designer needs to use mathematics to create a set of challenges that the player needs to solve. Show examples of open-world levels and puzzle levels, with the player exploring their world and solving puzzles. In both cases, mathematics is used to create a level that is challenging but not frustrating to complete. The designer needs to balance the difficulty to ensure that the player is engaged but not discouraged. Show an example of a designer adjusting the level to balance the difficulty. So, level design is an essential part of video game development, and mathematics is crucial in designing the levels. In the next segment, we will explore how mathematics is used to simulate the physics of the game world. Physics simulation is the process of simulating the physical behavior of objects in a video game. It involves creating a virtual world that behaves according to the laws of physics. Mathematics plays a crucial role in physics simulation. Show examples of physics simulation in different video games, such as racing games, sports games, and first-person shooters. Let's take the example of a racing game. In a racing game, the physics simulation dictates how the cars move and interact with the environment. The developer needs to use mathematics to create a set of rules that govern how the cars accelerate, brake, and turn. Show an example of a racing game with the cars moving and crashing. To create a realistic physics simulation, the developer needs to consider factors such as the weight and size of the cars, the friction of the road, and the force of gravity. They need to use mathematics to calculate the acceleration, velocity, and trajectory of the cars. Show an example of a developer working on a racing game with equations and formulas on the screen. The same applies to other types of games, such as sports games and first-person shooters. In a sports game, the physics simulation dictates how the ball moves and interacts with the players. In a first-person shooter, the physics simulation dictates how the bullets travel and interact with the environment. Show examples of sports games and first-person shooters, with the ball moving and the bullets flying. In both cases, mathematics is used to create a realistic physics simulation that enhances the player's immersion in the game world. The developer needs to balance the realism with the gameplay to ensure that the game is fun to play. Show an example of a developer adjusting the physics simulation to balance the realism and gameplay. So, physics simulation is an essential part of video game development, and mathematics is crucial in creating a realistic simulation. In the final segment, we will summarize the key points of this video. In this video, we have explored the fascinating world of mathematics and gaming, the math behind video games. We have seen how mathematics plays a crucial role in video game development, from designing game mechanics to creating levels and simulating physics. Show a montage of different video games, with equations and formulas overlaid on the screen. We have seen how game developers use mathematics to create a set of rules that govern how the game is played. They use mathematics to create levels that are challenging but not frustrating to complete. They use mathematics to create a realistic physics simulation that enhances the player's immersion in the game world. Mathematics is the foundation on which video games are built. Without mathematics, video games would not exist as we know them today. So, the next time you play a video game, remember that behind the fun and excitement lies the world of mathematics. Show an example of a player enjoying a video game. Thank you for watching Mathematics and Gaming, the math behind video games. We hope you have enjoyed this video and learned something new about the fascinating world of video game development.